Good morning. Welcome to AP Computer Science A. Today we're going to cover section 6.3, arrays of strings. So be sure to have your notes with you. Be sure to have your repo opened up to section 6.3. Type in your name, period, and don't forget to click submit once you are done so you can get credit for this assignment. Now on section 6.2, we're working with arrays of primitive types, of integers, doubles, boolean, and within the only thing that we were able to do, we were able to increase it by 1. We were able to add 2 elements in the array and then assign it to another element in the array. With arrays of strings, a string is an object of data type string. So now, because it's an object, we are going to be able to use all those methods that are in the string class that will allow us to be able to manipulate the strings. So let's get started. Let's go and create an array of strings, and let's go and use the 7 dwarfs. So do you know your 7 dwarfs? First, let's go and declare our array of strings. So be string bracket tells Java that's going to be an array. Let's go and call this dwarfs. Now there's 2 ways to be able to initialize your array of strings. One is by calling the constructor new, then string. And do we know how many elements are going to be in the array? Yes, there's going to be 7. Then we can start to initialize each of them. So what we have dwarfs, index of 0 will be the first one, and dopey and dwarfs 1 will be the second, and bashful. And before we continue, let's go and type in a for loop so we can actually print them out. So let's do for int I equal to 0 while I is less than the name of the array. Now length. Now we can type in less than 8 because there are 7 elements, but we prefer to use dwarfs dot length. Now the question is, do I need the parentheses here? Is this a method or a variable? That's a final variable in I++. So therefore we don't need the parentheses. And let's go say system.out println, and let's go and print each of the elements in the array, and it's going to be index of I. So now we've only we declare our array of string, but we only initialize the first 2. If I click on run, what is it going to print? Well, it's going to print those 2, but for the other 5, it's going to be null. Except for, if I can spell it correctly, it's dwarfs, not dwarf. Therefore, so what happens is that you have 7 containers for your array, but you only use the other 2. So whenever you have on line number 20, automatically Java will create all 7 containers, all 7 spaces for your string, and it starts to place them there as line number 22 places dopey. Line number 23, second element will be bashful. But on all the rest of the 5 that are left, it still has the spaces ready for you to be able to fill them in. So that's what null means. The container's there, but there's nothing there. But it's ready for you to be able to insert. Now, instead of creating one or initializing one at a time, let's go and use the other method where we know what's going to be inside. So let's go and say it's going to be dopey. And let's go and place them in lowercase, bashful, comma, sneezy, sleepy, which are the other two? Happy, grumpy, and duck. In quotation marks there because they're strings. And last, what's going on with my typing today? And duck. So now if we actually just go and print them out, it should print all 7, except for I have a error, and yes, that's a brace and not a parenthesis, correct? And then they should print all 7. Any questions so far? So now we want to be able to create a method, and we can create a method. We want to be able to get the first 3 letters and replace the array with only DOP, BAS, only the first 3 letters. And we can create a method above the main method, or in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to create a new class. We are going to rename it. And remember, there always has to be .java for it to be able to recognize that's a Java class. And we're going to say string manipulation. And you click OK. So it will be public class string manipulation. And we're going to create our methods here instead of having it in above the main method. And what we're going to do, we are going to create a method that will replace each element with the first 3 letters of each string. So how can we accomplish that? Now remember that each of them is a string of their class string. So we are able to use all the methods. If we search for string Java class, then it's going to take us to the very first one is the Oracle, which creates all the Java and is maintaining and owns the Java, and it has all the constructors, but it also has all the methods that we are able to use char at that we don't use much because it's now the APCSA. Contains 2 uppercase should be in here, 2 uppercase, 2 lowercase. You should see it's substring, 2 substring methods, but there are other ones that we don't use in the class just because they're not part of the APCSA. There's length that will return the length of the string. Notice that in this case it's a method and not a variable. So we are able to use everything that's in here. So let's go and do a for loop. Well, let's do the method, right? Do we need to create a method? So be public. In this case, it's going to be a static method because they're going to be able to use it without creating an object. We are not going to return anything, and we'll just say first 3 letters. What are they going to send in? What's the actual parameter? They're going to send in an actual, the actual parameter will be a string, an array of string, and we need to catch it here, and let's go and call it names. So before we continue, let's go over to your main method, and we are going to call this method right below. Now, because it's in a different class, we need to type in the name of the class, which will be string manipulation. Dot. Then we can call the method first 3 letters, but we need to be able to send in the array of strings, which is dwarfs. So therefore, the actual parameter is going to be dwarfs is an array of string. We are going to call the first 3 letters method that is in the string manipulation The first three letters method is a static method, so we don't have to create an object. We can just call it. And now what we're going to do, we are going to replace each of the strings with only the first three. So we need a for loop to be able to iterate through the string, to be able to access each of the elements in the string. So int I equal to 0, while I is less than names.length. Do I need the parentheses? No, because it's an array. And I plus plus. And the only thing that we're going to do, we are going to replace each of them with the first three letters. So the names, we're going to access each of the elements, I, and because this is a string, we can just say dot substring, and from 0, the first three letters, from 0 to 3. Remember, for substring is 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, and the third it doesn't include. So let's go and take it, for example, the first one, which is dopey. The index is 0, 1, 2, 3. The length is 4, correct? So therefore, if we want to be able to print the first three, or we just be able to access them, we have to go from 0 to 3. But remember that the last one doesn't get included, so it's just going to be DOP. So something to understand is that whenever you say names.I, let's say names index 0, that is going to be the string. And because that's a string, now we can use any of the methods that are in the string class, and we'll do substring 0, 3. And that's all we're doing in our method. We are just going to replace. Notice that we are not going to return the array, because the array is a data class. That means that it's going to, whenever it receives it, it only receives the location of all the elements of the array. So whenever you make changes, all the changes will stay there, even after we exit the method. So now we're going to go back. We already called them. So let's go and print them out. Let's go and do first a empty line. And now let's go and copy and paste our for loop that prints each of them. So that way we can see the difference. Copy and paste it. And now it should be able to print our original array of strings. And then it's going to call the method. It's not returning anything, so we don't need to catch it. It's just going to change all the values, all the elements, and it's just going to give me 3 letters at a time. Unless I made a mistake. And system.out.print. And there you go. So therefore, now dwarfs, all the elements got replaced by the first 3 letters. But what if we want the first 3 letters in uppercase? So if I want to just be able to have the first 3 letters, but now I want in uppercase, I can place, correct, 2 uppercase. Is I always forget what the C is. Uppercase. 2 different words. And what's wrong? I made a mistake already. Can you guys tell me what is the mistake? Yeah, 2 uppercase is a method. So I need to be able to place a method in here. And that should fix it. Right, so now this is getting a little longer. This will access the string. So now that it contains a string. So now we can call the first 3 letters. So therefore, this now contains the first 3 letters of the string. And then we're going to switch those 3 letters to uppercase. And that's going to be saving the same element as it was before. So we first create the array of strings. We printed it. which is here. We call the static method first three letters. Then we place an empty space, an empty line, and then we print them again. But what if we don't want to replace it? What if we just want to be able to create a new array and return the array? Because I still want to be able to keep my original array. I don't want to lose that. So how can we achieve that? We don't want to replace, we don't want to lose that information. We want to be able to create a new array and save it there. So what do you think we should do? Yeah, so first, we are going to return an array of strings. So string array is not going to be a void method any longer. And now we first have to create a array of string, the new one. And this is very common on the AP exam, and this is a key thing for you guys to be able to do on the AP exam, is be able to understand what's coming in, an array of strings, and do you need to return anything? If you just need to be able to modify what's inside, nothing to return. But if we need to be able to return another array of strings, we need to be able to create it. And you need to give it a new name. So let's say dwarfs, or 3 letters, or dwarfs 3. Then we need to be able to initialize it because we don't know the values. We're going to be inserting them in this part. We're going to say new string. And how big do you want to have? How many elements? Well, we're going to have 7 elements, correct? But we're going to have the same number of elements as the previous array that's coming in. So it'll be names.length. So now this is going to create a new array of strings that's going to be the same size as the one that's coming in. And now, instead of replacing the values, we are going to assign them to the new array that we created here. And remember that it's expecting to return an array of strings. So now we need to return dwarfs 3. And now when we come back over here, because it's returning something, we need to do something with it. So we need to catch it. We need to catch into a string array that we are going to declare. And we can call it anything that we want. Now that's going to be coming into here. So we can just say dwarfs 3. And now when we print here, we are going to print the new array that is coming back. And if we do it now, it should be exactly the same. Right? But now let's go and print our original array, so that way we make sure that we did not lose it. Let's do first a system.out println. So we have an empty line. So therefore, we're going to print our original array. We're going to print the new array. We'll consider the first 3 letters. So notice that we have original one, we have the new one, but we still have our original one. And that's going to be key for you to understand what is coming in, what do we need to return. If we need to return a new array of strings, we need to create a new array of strings, and we need to return that one instead. And then we can count. Let's go and create another method, the last method that we're creating. We're just going to return the total number of letters that are in all of the strings in the array. So how can you do that? So this method will add the total number of letters or characters, let's say characters, in the entire array of strings. So let's go and say public static So pause it, see what you get, and then we can compare answers. See if you can make it work. Pause it. You got it? Pause it. So let's say public, we are going to return the total numbers. We don't need to have a void because we need to be able to send a number out. And it's going to be a, what name do you want to have it? Add letters. And it's going to receive an array of strings, names. It's going to keep it the same. You can give it a different name. In this case, names only pertains to here. But if you're going to create, you can give it a different name if you want. But for now, we're going to keep it the same. We need to be able to do a for loop. I is less than names.length. No parentheses, I++. And we are going to add all the letters in each string. So therefore, we need to add them. So we need to be able to have the integer that we're going to return. And let's go and call it sum. And we do need to be able to initialize it to a value. Otherwise, it's going to give us an error. And we're just going to say sum plus equal. And it's going to be the names of each element. And we're going to get the length. So this is going to give us each of the elements, which is a string. And because it's a string, we can actually use the method length that's going to give us the length of the current string. And we're going to add it. And the last thing that we need to return is the sum. Now we are going to go back into main class, and we are going to print. Let's go and do an empty line again, system.out.println. And let's go and call our static method that's in the class string manipulation. What's the name of the method? We named it add letters. And we need to send in the array that we want them to count the letters, so be dwarfs. But because it's returning an integer, correct? It's returning an integer. We need to be able to do something with it. So let's go and we can save it, or we can just print it out. So let's go and say system.out.println and total number of characters in the array. And therefore, this will return the integer, and we need to be able to do something with it. So we need to be able to, in this case, we're just going to print it out. That's 37. Any questions? So this will conclude the lesson for today. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.